Hi, good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the work session for the City Council for the City of Wildwood for Monday, April 11, 2022. Ms. Eldridge, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Boland,
Here.
Councilmember Galani,
Here.
Councilmember Hopper, Councilmember Jaxi,
Here.
Councilmember Bertolino,
Here.
Councilmember Dodwell,
Here.
Councilmember Ottenberg, Councilmember Edens,
Here.
Councilmember Bros,
Here.
Councilmember Garitano,
Present.
Councilmember Flasher,
Here.
Councilmember Rambo,
Here.
Councilmember McCutcheon,
Here.
Councilmember Farmer, Councilmember Nyan,
Here.
Councilmember Bartoni,
Here.
Councilmember Clark.
Here.
Okay, thank you. Welcome, everyone. Good to see you. Before we go to action items, does anyone have anything under information on the work session agenda that they would like to discuss, ask questions about? All right, seeing none, moving into action items. The first is legislative update from our legislative consultant, Mr. Silverman. Thank you for being here, Jake. If you want to step forward and give us the latest.
Thank you very much. Appreciate everybody having me here today. Just want to go over a couple items before I head back to Jeff City. First, with the watershed erosion, the budget process is still going on. The House has officially perfected their budget bills. At first, what I was hearing was the Department of Natural Resources was only going to get about $50 million towards watershed or water infrastructure projects. That number has moved up to $410 million. Now, again, that's just in the House. We don't know what the Senate plans on doing. That number could increase, it could decrease. It could go back to the 50 million. I doubt it will, but it's always, wait and see process. That 410 million would be for a grant writing process for the city. So the city would have to apply for that money. It would be a 1-to-1 match. So let's just say the city comes in and says, we have $250,000 allocated for water infrastructure project. The state, if the city is approved, they would get the same amount of money that they put in. This has not stopped me from trying to get our own line item. The reason being is the bureaucracy of Department of Natural Resources. You never know what they're going to go with. So I did talk with Senator Schatz as chief of staff the other day. He actually reached out to me, which is always a good sign when they know that there's an issue that you have. And I did tell him that something we'd be looking for is probably around the $200,000 range. So it would have to be a 1-to-1 match. But if that number changes, please, let me know. If, I did watch the watershed erosion task force. So I know that the number was kind of around that amount. But if that does change, please let me know. I think, we'll see where that goes. Eventually, they could say, hey, we can't do 200,000, but we can give you 100,000. Well, that leaves however much left for the grant writing process. So another budget item is the broadband budget that we have seen in the economic development. That is, I believe, is around 100 million. I need to go back and check that budget. Now, I have heard that the city, if let's just say, I know that they've talked about a contract with expanding broadband access into the rural parts of Wildwood. I believe that you can get reimbursed for that. I have reached out to BJ Tanksley, the liaison for the broadband infrastructure within the economic development department. And I'm just kind of waiting to hear back. But if, let's say the city brings out, puts out $8 million for a contract, who knows, they might be able to be reimbursed for that $8 million. So I'm just kind of waiting to hear back on that. A couple bills that are out there that I know that I've talked with Steve and the city attorney, John Young, about is the home-based business bills. Senate Bill 809, I've discussed, that's sponsored by Senator Koenig, who will eventually be the city's sole senator. That has been placed on the formal calendar in position 32. So that's still up for perfection. That means the bill will still be debated on the floor. It's in position 32. So I don't know if anybody's been following the state Senate, but they are not getting a ton done right now. So if you're in position 32, it is in order in the Senate. So we've got 31 bills in front of it. And right now, I don't even know if the Senate's heard 10. So I would say that, I'm going to keep my eye on it, but for right now, it looks pretty good that that bill will probably not meet the goal line. So, and then there's House Bill 2593. That is a similar home-based business bill, but kind of more focused on the aspect of what the actual business is inside of the home. That was perfected on the House floor, and it's actually going to be third read today, meaning that it will pass the House. But I have talked with Representative Lovasco, the bill sponsor, and he has told me that he's not too confident that it's going to move much further in the Senate. He actually thought that the way it would actually get passed is if he attached it to Senate Bill 809, which is that one I just briefly talked about. So those are kind of the two major bills that pertain to the city that I'm following. And like I said, I'll keep track of them and make sure that I keep in touch with Steve and the mayor and about everything that could potentially be a problem to the city. So that's all I have for right now.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Silverman? Councilmember Edens.
Thanks for being here on this rainy day. Really appreciate it.
No problem.
Today, actually over the weekend, I got an email from a constituent that is an avid road cyclist. He's a volunteer on committees. And he was concerned that, I suppose, according to this information, that the Rock Island Trail that had been proposed went from having money allocated to none at all. And the quote from him is that if the state will complete the trail through Washington, Wildwood would be poised to bring the trail here, with it growing through Labadie, St. Albans, and Centaur areas. So do you have any knowledge about that, or an update that I can give back to him?
Yeah, absolutely. So they debated that. I want to say that was last week on Tuesday or Wednesday.
Okay.
There's a lot of hostility towards it. I would venture to say that this year you're not going to see it move forward. I believe I think it's like $70 million. It
was 69. It was a hefty price tag. Is that why it's?
That is, well, the biggest debate right now with that is there are cities, there's municipalities, there's counties that are concerned because they have other things that are more important, and they would rather see that money allocated to those things. And I'm not saying, it's like, let's just say there's money allocated to water, our
Right.
water issues. There's some things that take priority over the bike, the bike trails and stuff. And I'm not saying it's a good thing or a bad thing, but that's what I know is the big debate is, there's some cities and, that want other things done and want that money allocated elsewhere.
So it maybe has the potential in the future.
It might,
It's just low on the list.
it might in the
Probably not.
future. And I know that, I don't remember what representative was talking about it, but I know that there was, talk about maybe sectioning part of the, not doing 70 million and doing certain portions of it at a time. I don't know if that will, it didn't seem like a very positive debate topic on the House floor. So,
Okay, well, but thank you. I appreciate that. That
Yeah.
helps me to communicate back. And then I was wondering if we could have an update. I know at one time that there was, some legislation floating around that would require partisan declarations and nonpartisan races. And then I think that that's now partisan optional. Can you update us on that?
yeah, I would check my app and I can get back with you.
Okay.
I believe I looked at that the other day and I don't think it is I don't even know if it's passed out of committee.
Oh, okay.
And honestly, as I was talking with Councilmember Dodwell, the truth is they're moving slow. They're moving slow. So bills like that, I don't necessarily know if they'll make it to the finish line. So, the Senate's going to do their budget process, and most likely it's going to get sent back to the House, and then there's going to be a conference, and by the end, we only have a month left. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
As a general statement, I think we're functioning really well in Wildwood. I think that people are happy with the level of discourse, and I don't want to become a dysfunctional level of government. So I would love to see it not go anywhere. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Well,
Mhm.
respectfully, I have a slightly different opinion on that, but I don't know that it would lead to dysfunctionalism, but if it's not going to go anywhere. Councilor Garitano.
Mr. Silverman, thanks for your report. I reviewed it, and there was one bill that caught my attention. It's Senate Bill 1074, and it talks about prohibiting, the title is prohibits political subdivisions from using federal funds for the construction of retail broadband internet infrastructure in certain circumstances. And what caught my eye in this bill, because we are working on major internet project in this city and already have an agreement signed with a provider, is that they would bring back a provision that was in the actual draft of the federal language, which is unserved or underserved.
Mhm.
And that then could cause some issues for us, because someone that gets at least 25 would be considered a served person, but we know the reality of 25 Mbps is not realistic with all the streaming that takes place. And it looks like there's a similar provision in House Bill 1488. So I'm just raising it maybe just to see if that gets any traction or something. Maybe it might be something that we might be interested in watching, and certainly if the city administrator or the city attorney feel that could impact the work that we're doing.
Absolutely. I'll definitely look into it. I know that was I was working on an issue 2 years ago, very similar to that. And I was talking, about the issue with the definition, I guess you could say the definition of served compared to underserved. And basically it's, if you have, it's like, a few houses that are served in an area, you're deemed served. And I know that they were going off the federal maps, which is, I would assume, and I can check with Lewis Riggs, who's the representative, and the head of the broadband committee. I can talk with him and see where that plans on going. But I have a feeling that the task force is going to make sure that they do it right. So,
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anything else from Mr. Silver? All right. Well, thanks for your work.
Thank you very
Looks like
much.
we're making progress, and can't wait to hear about the watershed erosion item. So
hopefully know something soon.
yes, we will. All right.
Thank you very much.
All right. Next, moving to the watershed erosion task force, Mr. Benich.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor and members of City Council, at the last meeting of the Watershed Erosion Task Force, the members took up an item relating to additional consulting work, but on a different subject than what, for the most part, the City Council's been told in the recent past. This particular item relates to existing detention and retention basins that were constructed with subdivisions pre-MSD's new standards, and certainly long before the City of Wildwood incorporated. Those basins were constructed at a standard that was felt was substandard, and that they do little to protect the watershed, particularly in Cox Creek. The thought is to do additional study and preliminary engineering on 6 of those basins, all upstream from the Triple Meander and the other critical locations that have been identified by the same task force, and then potentially work with the homeowners associations to upgrade them so they meet current standards, if not exceed. The idea being is this is a project that has a lower price tag, and it has almost an immediate effect on the amount of stormwater being discharged into Cox Creek. The cost of the contract with Wilson Hydro, Joe Wilson, Todd Wagner, is $12,000. That money is available in a capital improvements program for 2022, and therefore the task force is recommending a favorable action by the City Council. The action this task force is requesting to authorize the legislation to be prepared to engage Wilson Hydro to do this preliminary engineering on the 6 basins. Mr. Mayor and members of City Council, if there are any questions, certainly those representatives on City Council with the task force can speak to them, as well as the department. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Dodwell.
just a few questions on logistics. How soon do you anticipate, once this is approved, will it come back to council at the next meeting? If we approve it tonight?
Yes, ma'am, that would be the intent of the department, to have the legislation prepared in the form of a resolution for the city council to consider. As a resolution, it would only take one action.
Yeah, and then when is the timetable? What timetable are they working on? I mean, it's going to be drastically different doing it the last half of April into May than if they did similar reviews in July and August.
Certainly, weather is a factor. I had a conversation with Joe Wilson, I should say via email, and they are prepared to proceed as soon as they get the authorization from the city. So they're kind of they're at that point where they could get it done, at least get it started pretty quickly.
Do we need a second vote tonight so that we move this quickly? I know
Well,
he hasn't developed a resolution yet.
This is just a draft legislation, so
Okay.
we can't do anything other than have that motion tonight. When
Okay.
it comes up for first reading at the next council
Then we
meeting,
can do it.
if there's sentiment on the part of the council to have a second reading, it could be done then.
Thank you.
Do you want to make a motion to have the legislation prepared?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second from Councilmember Bartoni. Is there any discussion on the motion to have the legislation prepared? Councilmember Bartoni. You were seconding?
I was seconding, but I do have a question.
Okay, go
So-
ahead.
Okay, thank you. So, Joe, do we, being the city or the consultant, need some sort of permission to go with the homeowners associations to run these tests? And if so, have we gotten that permission?
Mr. Bartoni, yes, we will need permission to access the common ground areas where these basins exist over the next 2-week period. That's the amount of time between tonight's meeting and the regularly scheduled meeting of city council. The department would hope to contact as many of those homeowners associations as possible to let them know what we're thinking and allow us to begin that process.
Any further questions or discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, next on our list is an executive session. We have a couple of items. We'll need a motion and a roll call vote to go into executive session, assuming council wants to do that, made by Councilmember Farmer, seconded by Councilmember McCutcheon. Any discussion on the motion to go into executive session? Seeing none, Ms. Eldridge, please call the roll for the motion.
Councilmember Galani.
Yes.
Councilmember Hopper.
Yes.
Councilmember Jaxi.
Yes.
Councilmember Bertolino.
Yes.
Councilmember Dodwell.
Yes.
Councilmember Edens.
Yes.
Councilmember Bros.
Yes.
Councilmember Garitano.
Yes.
Councilmember Flasher.
Yes.
Councilmember Rainbow.
Yes.
Councilmember McCutcheon.
Yes.
Councilmember Farmer.
Yes.
Councilmember Nyan.
Yes.
Councilmember Bartoni.
Yes.
Councilmember Clark.
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to do that. Everyone will need to turn your microphones off and close your laptops. And those of you that are our guests, including our intern, thank you so much for being here tonight. Good to see you. Unfortunately, just as 21. Mr. Bennett, would you like to speak to that, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, and thank you. Mr. Mayor and members of City Council, this particular item is before you tonight as a receipt and file because it originated here at City Council and ultimately spent a great deal of time at the Planning and Parks Committee of City Council. The item relates to a potential change to the zoning ordinance relating to aquaculture and the prohibition of permitted uses until such existing aquaculture facilities have a conditional use permit, which is now required. The Planning and Zoning Commission did do their due diligence, considered it, and tonight you have a report from the Planning and Zoning Commission recommending no change to the current language in the zoning ordinance as it relates to permitted uses and aquaculture activities.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Bennett? I said we had, I'm sorry, Councilmember Clark. Okay. Councilmember Galani.
Yeah, I had a question. I guess the receipt and file was different. Sorry. I was actually wondering in regards to the particular property that we've been dealing with for a number of years regarding the Lisk aquaculture location. And having had gone through planning and parks extensively regarding this particular ordinance. And then I know we had a almost 3-hour meeting with Dr. Thunder after having paid him many thousands of dollars to do his study, and having heard him say without a shadow of a doubt that that property was not posing any issue regarding our ordinance. And then Planning and Parks overwhelmingly supported approving his permit for conditional use to move forward and brought it back to council. Council then kicked it back to P&Z, who to my understanding voted overwhelmingly to deny his conditional use permit. So I would like to make a motion right now that the council vote tonight to immediately reinstate Mr. Lisk's conditional use permit to operate his aquaculture business and put this to rest finally.
So I don't know if that would be the right motion to make. City Attorney, if the council, so the way these work, the reason they're here on your agendas is because the council can decide to quote unquote take it up. And that gets into a whole litany of procedure, I believe. So City Attorney Young, would you please let the council know what its options are with respect to this? And if it does decide to take it up, what that entails.
Yeah, so the appropriate action at this time would be to exercise your power of review on the recommendation in the receive and file. But in terms of the specific motion you're asking for, that's not something that can be done this evening for sunshine law purposes, and also some procedural concerns in that regard. But it would be within the council's purview to exercise its power of review and schedule a public hearing on this.
So your motion would be to exercise its right of review, which would include a public hearing.
Okay, yeah, that's the
You want to make
proper-
that motion?
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion to do that. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilmember Flasher. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Does this whole controversy suggest that the fellow won't be able to continue his aquaculture operation unless we do something? There's what's the significance of this of taking this up for review?
Go ahead.
Excuse me. The actual discussion at Planning and Parks Committee was about restoring permitted uses to a facility that is providing aquacultural services, but not governed by a conditional use permit. So Mr. Lisk, in this case, could continue forward with his aquaculture operation. All this would do is potentially allow him to have the permitted uses of the non-urban resident district, i.e. a single-family dwelling in conjunction with the aquaculture.
That's what I understood, but I'm confused by this new motion.
Well, I guess maybe I'm confused as to what the ongoing issue is that we have with the Lisk property regarding continuing testing and requesting additional testing. And so
City Attorney Young.
Yeah, first, the testing issue is a little bit of a red herring. So let me kind of go backwards a little bit. The current ordinance states that if you have an aquaculture operation on your property in the non-urban, to be allowed to use other uses such as a residence or other permitted uses, you have to get a conditional use permit. What the proposed legislation that was at the Planning and Zoning Commission states is to move those back to being permitted uses. So the aquaculture use doesn't change at all. It's the other uses on the same property as the aquaculture use, changing them from conditional uses to permitted uses.
So in essence, the upshot would be if the planning and zoning action remains the case, he would not need to seek further approval to have a residence that would be allowable in addition to the aquaculture.
The exact opposite, actually.
Okay.
And that, so the issue is if it remains as is, to have a residence on the property requires a conditional use permit, which could require various testing associated with it from a sound study perspective.
And I guess that's my issue, is the fact that, we've had the issue with the sound, whatever. We've had Dr. Thunder, been out there 4 times or what have you, and completed numerous rounds of testing and extrapolated the figures, talked to the manufacturer, verified there's only one setting for these.
I think the issue with P&Z was that, and I remember this now, it was that not all of the, what do you call them? Aerators were running.
Correct. But I sat through an almost 3-hour meeting with Dr. Thunder where he specifically stated without a shadow of a doubt that he had been there when 3 of the aerators were fully functional and studied the make, model and everything with the manufacturer. There's only one setting. There cannot be any additional different sounds that are performed by these aerators, whether there's 2, 4, or 6 running. He can extrapolate the 3 to the 6. And so, and he even said, he goes, if you want me to go back out there and do additional testing, it's going to cost more time and more money to the city, but I can guarantee you with certainty that the findings will be the same. And we questioned him ad nauseum about that in this very lengthy meeting. And he told us over and over and over again that there would absolutely be no circumstance where different sounds would come out of that. And that furthermore, that the sounds coming out of those machines are well below the current ordinance. And that even
so the motion on the floor is to take it up, not to get into the merits of it. So
no, I know. I guess I'm just trying to figure out where, what I'm trying to propose is that we put this to bed for this resident and move forward without any additional testing or expenses or needing additional permits to have his residence where he's got his aquaculture, which he's had for years, and let this gentleman move forward. And then that's, I guess, the point I'm trying to make. And whatever entails making that happen is what I'm trying to move forward.
And that would be your motion to take it up. And then the council, if this motion passes, then what your objective is would depend on further action from the council in terms of, does it want to go against what P&Z did or whatever. City Attorney Young, did you want to say something? Councilmember Clark's been patiently waiting.
No, and I was just going to say, to your point and exactly what you just said, that if you bring this up and it passes as presented, it would accomplish exactly what you're suggesting.
Okay.
Councilmember Clark.
Well, I'm just representing the Ward 1 residents also. It's been a long time we've been working on this, and I so appreciate the patience and all from listening to me talk about it ad nauseum, I'm sure. And but in reality, we have failed to do a scientific method on the testing. The testing was done. We used extrapolated data, just like you said, but with the independent variables, I'm getting there, on the independent variables that require full testing of all 6 motors. So the residents that I'm speaking of did report since that time, the discrete noise came back for 2 weeks. So either we had those 3 motors that were running, one of them or all of them caused a discrete noise, or 2, one of the 3 that weren't working caused a discrete noise, or we've got the wrong root cause. So if we just finish this now, we haven't done a full investigation and put this to bed for good. So in my opinion, we have to hold on to this, what we've got, to encourage him to go ahead and test these motors or find the root cause of that discrete tone that came back before we just say, well, let's just vote on it and push it aside.
So you're speaking against the
I
motion.
am speaking.
Okay.
against-
Seeing no further discussion, roll call, Councilmember Bartoni.
Okay, and I don't know if this question is going to be for Joe or for city attorney, but if next week, next month, 5 years, 10 years from now, if the aquaculture is making noise that goes above our code, we can cite the site.
Certainly, and we've done that in the past. We've done investigations when complaints were filed. We did testing. We determined that there were no violations, but certainly we would do that again and again until we address the problem.
So if this would pass and in the future, you know, anybody who owns a piece of property doesn't have carte blanche to make as much noise as they want.
That's correct. In fact, our city administrators made a point of telling pretty much anybody that would listen that we'll keep an eye on it. We'll do our job in terms of enforcement and investigation.
Okay, and without putting words in your mouth, the department has been in favor of giving these rights back to the property owner for a long, long time.
Yes, when the original legislation was passed, the department was opposed to it. Taking permitted uses in a zoning district from a property owner is a major step, in my opinion.
Okay, I'm in support of Mr. Galani's motion that we just bring this back to the council and go from there.
Okay, roll call vote on the motion. And this would be to pick this up and reassess it essentially as a council. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Ottenberg,
Yes.
Councilmember Edens,
Yes.
Councilmember Bros,
No.
Councilmember Garitano,
Abstain.
Councilmember Flasher,
Yes.
Councilmember Rambo,
Yes.
Councilmember McCutcheon. No. Councilmember Farmer. Councilmember Nian,
Yes.
Councilmember Bartoni,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark,
No.
Councilmember Galani,
Yes.
Councilmember Hopper,
Yes.
Councilmember Jaxi,
Yes.
Councilmember Bertolino,
Abstain.
Councilmember Dodwell.
Yes.
Okay, so the motion carries. Moving next, we have one other PZ receiving file 7-15. You want to speak to that, Mr. Benich?
Very briefly, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor and members of City Council, as with any action by the Planning and Zoning Commission on a conditional use permit, this body has the right to exercise review within 15 days of your receipt of the report. That 15 days begins today with the receipt of the report. The Planning and Zoning Commission authorized the extension of the conditional use permit for this commercial boarding stable on Route BA near Babbler State Park. And as part of that, also authorized a longer review period than originally established by the permit. I believe the review period was at 3 years. It is now 7 years. I would note that the owners of the commercial boarding stable have done everything that the permit required and have turned what I would have considered problem property into a shining example of what a stable should look like for commercial purposes. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Joe or any comments? All right, seeing none, the next item for the work session is a motion to adjourn. Would anyone like to make that motion? Made by Councilmember Dodwell, seconded by Councilmember Farmer. It's a non-debatable motion. All in favor of the motion to adjourn the work session of the City Council, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, so the work session is adjourned. We're now going to move into the main meeting of the council. I want to thank everyone watching and those of you in attendance for your patience as we reach this point. Welcome, everyone. Good to see you. Ms. Eldridge, please call the roll of the council for our main meeting.
Mayor Boland,
Here?
Councilmember Galani,
Here.
Councilmember Hopper,
Here.
Councilmember Jaxi,
Here.
Councilmember Bertolino,
Here.
Councilmember Dodwell,
Here.
Councilmember Ottenberg,
Here.
Councilmember Edens,
Here.
Councilmember Bros,
Here.
Councilmember Garitano,
Here.
Councilmember Flasher,
Here.
Councilmember Rambo,
Here.
Councilmember McCutcheon,
Here.
Councilmember Farmer,
Here.
Councilmember Nian,
Here.
Councilmember Bartoni,
Here.
Councilmember Clark,
Here.
All right, excellent. For those of you who are comfortably able, if you'd please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Moving next to approval of minutes from the council's March 14, 2022 work session and regular meeting. Does anyone have any comments or questions relative to those minutes? If not, I would ask for a motion to approve the minutes made by Councilmember Ottenberg, seconded by Councilmember Farmer. Any discussion on the motion to approve the minutes as presented from the March 14, 2022 work session and regular meeting? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Next, moving into public participation, I just want to mention a couple of things about that before we start it. Public comment is a valuable component of our meeting. Anyone wishing to speak must complete a speaker card if you're in person and hand it to the city clerk, who is sitting to the left of the podium, or if you're on Zoom by using the raise hand feature. When your name is called, please state your name and ward. To ensure that all who wish to speak have the opportunity to do so, there is a 5-minute time limitation, and I will let you know when that time limit is reached if needed. If you have any questions for us, please mention that during your remarks and identify the official that you would like to respond. That official will make note of it, and at the conclusion of public participation, any official who chooses to respond will have 3 minutes to do so as to all questions directed to that official. The official may choose to respond to your questions after tonight's meeting, and we may post any responses on the city council page of our website. Finally, please be respectful to others in making your remarks. This means that interrupting others and using profane and abusive language are prohibited. And I want to thank everyone in advance for following these. First speaker card, please.
The first speaker card is Al Ketzner, wishing to comment on Old State Road at Fairhaven Estates.
Can you please come to the podium, Mr. Kitchener? That's all right. We'll get you there. Go ahead.
Anyway, I think you've seen me here before, at least at the Administration Public Works Commission meeting last week or last month. Recently, I asked for a county police report on a stretch of road of Old State, from Old State Place to Nantucket Meadows, which is 1/2 mile. It's a curvy, hilly, no shoulders, trees, poles within arm's distance of the roadway. 22 accidents in 60 months. That's 2.7. That's one accident every 2.7 months. I've been working on this for February of last year. And at one time I was told that we'd get flashing yellow lights on the hill blocks view signs. I was also told that Wildwood would pay for it. I've requested some additional information and haven't really received any answers back on that particular situation. I don't understand why it's a relatively inexpensive fix that would not only protect automobiles and the resulting, what should I say, cost to the individuals, et cetera, blocking of traffic. Just recently on March 22nd, the road was closed because of the accident. But there's evidently a potential for putting an island at the entrance of Fairhaven Estates, which would do nothing to protect pedestrians. It may very well protect some automobile accidents for those making a left turn into Fairhaven Estates. So I'd just like to get some input as to what can be done. I think this is a really minor expense. I understand the county supposedly said no, they wouldn't do it. I asked for the reasons why the county said that. I haven't gotten a response to that question. It seems to me that the county and Wildwood shared the cost of the fix that we temporarily had at Ridge Road in Old State. And I don't understand why that same methodology can't be used to just put simple solar powered yellow flashing lights at that area, a little 1/2 mile stretch. That's all we're asking for. At some point in time, there's going to be a child that comes out of Fairhaven Estates, go across the road to a nice, beautiful little vacant pond. And he's carrying his fishing pole and his tackle box, and he's going to get hit. This is easy. I think that's what government's supposed to do. Government is supposed to protect people. You got all these other zoning and all this other wonderful stuff. And we generate all this income from sales taxes, et cetera. But the primary responsibility of the city of Wildwood is to protect its citizens and its visitors, of which I am one. I don't live here. I live in St. Albans. My grandchildren live on Old State Road. So I just asked that you give this some fair consideration and get it done. Thank you.
Next speaker card, please.
The next speaker card is James Vanek, wishing to comment about Mr. Ketzner's comments.
Good evening, everybody. First things first, I want to say thank you. Last Thursday, the rapid flashing beacons got put in to the sidewalk, or not crosswalk, I should say, at Old State and Ridge Road where my son got hit back in November. That was a much needed short-term improvement. It'll add significantly to the safety of that intersection. Also, the restriping of the road was another great short-term solution, relatively inexpensive in cost. But having said that, that is not the final solution to that intersection. It still remains dangerous, particularly during rush hour in the morning, rush hour in the evening. Lots of families going to and from Ridge Elementary, very close by. And it's very difficult to access, particularly going north on Ridge and turning south to Old State. So hopefully this coming year, with the infrastructure money being there, we can make a successful attempt with East-West Gateway to fund that intersection. Now, I want to thank Mr. Kitzner for his comments and his dedication to improving the safety on Old State. Originally, I had thought that the most dangerous area of Old State was probably the Ridge Road intersection. But having found out that there was 22 accidents in 60 months just in the area around Fairhaven community, it has changed my opinion to where it is of equal or greater concern to members in our community that that area that he's discussing is a half-mile area from Old State Place down to Nantucket Meadows or something like that. That area should also be considered for improvement this coming year, just based on a safety factor. 22 accidents in 60 months, that is something that should shock everybody here, seriously. And even if you're from a different ward, this is something that should not be considered okay or acceptable in our community. This is something that needs to be resolved, and the money is going to be there this next year. So hopefully we can all work together and get this done. Thank you for it.
Thank you. Any other speaker cards, Ms. Eldridge? Anyone raising hands? I don't see any on Zoom. Okay, that concludes public participation. Moving next into mayor announcements and appointments. We have one very nice announcement. There's an organization in Missouri called Missouri Preservation. It's based in Jefferson City. And each year it has its preeminent award that's called the McReynolds Award. It gives to someone or some agency or city, in our case, who has made significant achievements in the field of long-term preservation in our state. And I am pleased to let all of you know that the Wildwood Historic, our HPC, Historic Preservation Commission, has just been notified that it received this award. And we're very appreciative for all that they do and also for the council liaisons to that, including Ms. Nyan. Did you want to say anything further about this? Councilor Nyan?
Not really. I just know that they, Ms. Keefe especially, and you too, have worked really hard. I think, if I'm not mistaken, she applied for a lesser award, but they felt that the project was of such significance that they actually awarded the award up from there. So it's really a great accomplishment.
Excellent. All right. So congratulations to them. Absolutely. Okay, and last, we do have one appointment from Ward 5, Ms. Leslie Jones, to our Architectural Review Board. She has a background that I think is very well suited for that, as I indicated in my memo. And by the way, my apology for not getting this memo posted prior to today. Got a little sidetracked there. So in any event, Ms. Jones, as I indicated in the memo, actually faithfully served the city for several years on our Board of Ethics during some rather tumultuous times. And she was chair of that and handled it very well. And so I reached out to her after she termed out on that board and asked her if we could find another spot for us. And she had done such great work and she agreed to take this spot. So I'm very happy to present this to you as a position replacement on the ARB from Ward 5. Are there any questions? If not, I would ask for a motion to approve made by Councilor Bertolino, second by Councilor McCutcheon. Is there any discussion on the motion to approve Ms. Jones to the ARB? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, thank you. The motion carries. Moving next into public hearings. The first is liquor license from Craft Acquisitions LLC. Mr. Benich. Oh, I'm sorry, Miss, we need to read it. Miss Eldridge, would you please read item A, the first public hearing item?
Liquor license application for Craft Acquisitions LLC, doing business as Craft, which is located at 16524 Manchester Road.
Thank you. And Mr. Benich, if you would please feel free to make any comments on that. And if there's any action you're seeking of the council, let us know that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor and members of City Council, there has been a change in ownership of the restaurant Craft.
Hold
Under
on just
the
a minute. Go. Okay, go ahead. You have to start over.
Mr. Mayor and members of City Council, there has been a change in ownership of the Craft restaurant. Under the regulations regarding liquor licenses in the city of Wildwood, such requires a new liquor license be issued, requiring a public hearing. The police department and the Department of Planning have reviewed the application and found it acceptable and signed off on it. And the city clerk, Megan, has processed it to this point. And tonight, the department is respectfully requesting approval of the liquor license.
Okay. Do we have any speaker cards? Anyone on Zoom on this? I don't see any. All right. Any questions for Joe? If not, I would ask for a motion on this item, Ward 7, made by Councilmember Flasher to approve the liquor license. Okay. Seconded by Councilmember Hopper. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion as presented, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Next, liquor license, Cardinal SSC. Mr. Benich.
Again, thank you, Mr. Mayor. In this particular instance, this is a new liquor license for Sunny Street Cafe, which is part of the Dearborg's Town Center development. And again, in this particular instance, the police department and the Department of Planning have reviewed the application and found it acceptable. The city clerk has processed all of the paperwork and is presenting it tonight as part of this public hearing. And the department is again respectfully requesting that the liquor license be approved. Thank you.
I'm sorry, before we take any action on this, we actually need to have it read. My apology. Ms. Eldridge, would you please read item B, the second public hearing item?
Liquor license application for Cardinal SSC Wildwood LLC, doing business as Sunny Street Cafe, which is located at 2480 Taylor Road.
Thank you. Any speaker cards on this item? And I don't see anyone on Zoom. Okay, any questions for Joe or a motion? Councilor Galani. Okay, we have a motion to approve, seconded by Councilor Galani, seconded by Councilor Garetano. Any discussion on the motion? See no discussion. All in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, motion carries. That is approved. Lastly, public hearing HR 1-21, the Marinas Province. Ms. Eldridge, would you please read it?
HR 1-21, the Marinas Province of the U.S., care of Merle Wilberding and Chris Kennard, 4425 West Pine Boulevard, St. Louis, Missouri, 63108. A request to remove a family retreat lodge, which is located at 4000 State Route 109, locator number 26V310045, known as Mary Cliff, formerly Woodcliff, circa 1905, per St. Louis County Tax Records, circa 1891, per City of Wildwood's Historic Building Inventory, Survey 2014-15, updated July 2019, page 120 of 343, from the city's historic register. This tract of land is zoned NU Non-Urban Residence District. The property owners have applied to rescind the Wildwood Historic Registry designation, ordinance number 2475, noting the original plans to renovate and preserve Mary Cliff are no longer feasible. The owners are entitled to remove the property from the list, given the designation was not in conjunction with the historic zoning district or overlay, or in conjunction with an ordinance expressly granting economic or regulatory incentives.
Thank you. Mr. Bennett, do you have anything you want to mention relative to HR 1-21?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, members of City Council, as is noted in the advertisement read into the record by the city clerk, the property owners are requesting that the historic registered designation of this property be removed. In 2019, an ordinance was approved, and at that time, the executive director of the facility believed that they would be able to raise funds for the renovation and turn this into a family retreat center. With COVID-19 and the funding not making the extent needed, the current leadership of this facility is requesting that such be removed. The Historic Preservation Commission did review the information provided by the property owners, had many discussions relating to this, and ultimately recommended that the register request be granted, which would remove Mary Cliff from that particular document. The rationales for that action are explained in the report, and the department's available for any comments or questions after public comment is provided. Thank you.
Thank you. Any speaker cards on this item? And I don't see anyone on Zoom. And I don't think there's any action required this evening of the council. Is that correct, Mr. Bennett?
Mr. Mayor, with respectfully, the department will request authorization to prepare legislation to remove the designation from the property.
Okay. And I do see a hand, Chris Cunard. You can move that speaker over. All right, we have you. There you go. Well,
yes, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to say to let you know that there was a representative of the owner here, and Mr. Vinich explained everything correctly. I just wanted to be clear. There's no intention that that this property is going to be torn down. It's just there needs some time to assess what to do with it, and the Marinas will be thoughtful in that process, and will work with the city as well. Was made aware that there may be some potential opportunities for funding from other sources from Mr. Vinich and his staff. And we thank you for the time and attention to this matter.
Okay, thank you so much for being here. Any questions for Joe, or is there a motion? And this is in Ward 6. Councilmember Jackson.
I make the motion to prepare the.
Okay, we have a motion to prepare the legislation as requested. Is that a second? Second by Councilor Rambo. Go ahead, Councilor Rambo.
Yes, Mr. Kennard, I appreciate that comment. I'm personally sad to have this designation rescinded. It's a great property, and I was looking forward to the renovation and preservation. But your statements give me hope that even though this was voluntary, we can maybe put you back on someday as a beautifully renovated property. So thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. All right, that takes us to our second readings. The first of which I understand Bill 2675, I believe That's been requested for postponement. Is that correct, Mr. Brown?
Actually, Mr. Mayor, indefinite postponement, please. Yes.
Indefinite postponement.
Yes.
Okay, that means it will not be coming back. Is that correct?
That is the intent. Thank you.
Okay, would someone like to make a motion for the indefinite postponement of Bill 2675 made by Councilmember Garitano, second by Councilmember Dodwell? Any discussion on the motion for indefinite postponement, please? I'm sorry, any discussion on the motion? All right, all in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, so that's postponed. Now, to expedite our meeting, I have a question before we go to our next bill. So we have 4 remaining under the second readings. The first is Bill 2676. It is an agreement with Human Nature and Civil Design that proceeds with engineering plans and so forth for the Village Green. Yes. We're going to get to that in just a moment. But thank you for mentioning that. Joe, are you going to suggest a postponement on that, or did you want to say something else about it?
Mr. Mayor, sorry to interrupt you. I apologize, but yes, I would respectfully request this bill be postponed.
We have 2 postponed.
John Young and I were not able to coordinate our efforts, and we would like to have this back as soon as possible, but it is not ready for action tonight. Thank you.
Okay, and so we'll postpone this without objection, if you're okay with it, to the next council meeting. Okay, would someone like to make that motion? Made by Councilmember Jaxie, seconded by Councilmember Villani. Any discussion on the motion to postpone Bill 2676? See no discussion, all in favor of the motion to postpone, and this is a motion to postpone definitely, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? And thank you, Ms. Eldridge, for causing me to see Joe's hand there. All right, so now we're left with 3 second readings. 2683 authorizes a minor subdivision plat. It's been through first reading. That's in Ward 6. Bill 2686 relates to a contract with Go Green Lawn for maintenance of native landscaping, $48,200. Bill 2687 relates to a similar public works project contract with NB West Contracting for resurfacing of our public streets for $600,000. Does any council member anticipate not supporting any of those 3? Okay, so with that, I would suggest to expedite the meeting that we have the 3 readings done. We handle these in mass. We have the 3 readings done simultaneously and 1 vote for all. Is that acceptable with everyone? Okay, perfect. Ms. Eldridge, please read bills 2683, 2686, and 2687.
I need a motion and a second.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. You do. Is there a motion for the second reading of bills 2683, 2686, and 2687? Made by Councilmember Bros, seconded by Councilmember Ottenberg. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Now, Ms. Eldridge, would you please read the 3 bills?
Bill 2683, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, authorizing a minor subdivision plat of a 29 8/10 acre parcel of ground that is located in the southeast quarter of the southeast quarter of section 30, township 44 north, range 3 east of the 5th principal meridian, and more specifically situated at the terminus of Chateau Lane and hereafter to be known as the Chateau 4 subdivision, second reading. Bill number 2686, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to negotiate and execute a contract on behalf of the city with Go Green Lawn and Landscape LLC for the maintenance of certain native landscaping areas within the city, second reading. Bill number 2687, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to negotiate and execute a contract on behalf of the city with NB West Contracting Company for the resurfacing of various public streets within the city, including traffic control and other incidental items as shown on the construction drawings and specifications, second reading.
Thank you. Mr. Bennett, do you have anything you want to mention relative to Bill 2683?
No, sir, but I'm available for any comments or questions from you, Mr. Mayor, or this.
Okay, Councilman Rambo.
Yeah, very quickly. Joe, I meant to drive down there and I didn't get to, but there are a lot of low water bridges down there in that area. Does this, is there anything on Chateau, whatever, the Chateau Lane? that we should be concerned about? Or
Well, Councilmember Rambo, as part of any plats we do on Chateau Lane, we usually do put something relating to flood access, meaning that there is not flood-free access, so that anyone that would look at the plat as a potential buyer knows that they may be faced with being either unable to leave their home or unable to get their home for short periods of time.
okay, good enough.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Joe or any comments on the bill? Rick, do you have anything you want to mention relative to bills 2686 or 2687?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, I do not, but it's normal. I'm available for any questions from the city council.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Rick on either one of those? All right, seeing none, Ms. Eldridge, please call the roll for final passage of bills 2683, 2686, and 2687.
Councilmember Edens,
Yes.
Councilmember Bros,
Yes.
Councilmember Garitano,
Yes.
Councilmember Flasher,
Yes.
Councilmember Rambo,
Yes.
Councilmember McCutcheon,
Yes.
Councilmember Farmer,
Yes.
Councilmember Nian,
Yes.
Councilmember Bartoni,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Galani,
Yes.
Councilmember Hopper,
Yes.
Councilmember Jaxi,
Yes.
Councilmember Bertolino,
Yes.
Councilmember Dodwell,
Yes.
Councilmember Ottenberg.
Yes.
All right, thank you. All three bills have passed. Moving next to first readings, Bill 2688 is before the council, and it concerns Ward 1. Is there a motion for the first reading of the bill? Made by Councilmember Clark, seconded by Councilmember Brost. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We have one opposed, Councilmember McCutcheon. Any other opposed? Any abstentions? Ms. Eldridge, please read Bill 2688.
Bill 2688, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to negotiate and execute a municipal agreement by and between the city of Wildwood, Missouri and the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission for the construction and maintenance of a new roundabout on State Route 109/Route CC at Wild Horse Creek Road and South Etherton Road. First reading.
Thank you. Rick, do you have anything you want to mention relative to the bill?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, I do not, but I'm available for any questions from the city council.
Any questions for Rick or any comment? Councilmember Dodwell.
Just so the public may know exactly when do we anticipate this being started on and what's the time frame for completion?
Councilmember Dodwell, the schedule is that they'd like to let the project this fall for construction. I think, though, the majority of construction would occur next year, frankly, so I wouldn't expect it to be completed until possibly sometime next summer, a year from now.
And then I've had a couple of residents ask me, how is traffic going to be diverted during that time period? Where will the signage go up directing people not to go through that area?
Councilmember Dodwell, that's a good question, and I think that's something that we will work to maybe better inform the city council on going forward. What I know so far is that they are talking about potentially closing South Etherton Road during the construction of the project. And that is the one closure that does have some concerns to me. But my understanding is that, well, my preference, and I have told MoDOT, is that we would expect them to divert that traffic over to Route CC and Wild Horse Creek, excuse me, not on Wild Horse Creek Road to the west, but Route CC to the east to Long Road.
Thank you. Any
Thank
other
you.
questions for Councilmember Clark?
Yes, have we discussed this with the two property owners? I'm sure we have, that are on the north and south western side of the roundabout that's going in. As far as putting up some kind of a landscape buffer that will help decrease the noise that we have some complaints about at the new roundabout near Pond Grover Parkway.
Councilmember, I'm not aware of any discussions relative to that concern. This is a MoDOT project, so we are not involved directly in right-of-way acquisition or negotiation. So I know MoDOT has had to negotiate with both property owners to acquire easements. So they certainly would have had some feedback from those residents. But I would point out to you that the location of the intersection is actually moving essentially to the northeast, which will move the road away from both of those properties. So in some respects, they're actually going to be positively impacted with this project. But certainly, if you'd like to get more information, we can follow up with MoDOT directly on that if you'd like.
Yes, I would like, because I also, it looks like on the plan sheet to me that the easement in their properties is extended slightly farther than what the easement shows at this time. Am I wrong on that? Or are we going to ask them for a greater easement? They don't have a whole lot of room.
Yeah, I think maybe we ought to talk about that after the meeting, if that's okay. All I have are the plans that have been provided. I'm not aware of any changes beyond those plans, quite frankly.
So prior to second reading, we'll get that.
Okay, sure. Thank
Any other questions for Rick? All right, moving next to Bill 2689. It's before the council also for first reading. It concerns Ward 2. Is there a motion for the first reading of the bill? Ward 2. Councilmember Edens makes the motion. Councilmember Bartoni seconds. All in favor of the first reading, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Ms. Eldridge, please read Bill 2689.
Bill 2689, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, establishing the boundaries of the Special Circumstances Overlay District, SCOD, by including therein 5 legal lots of records, all being herein identified, with said action being consistent with the letter of recommendation completed and submitted by the Planning and Zoning Commission and dated February 7th, 2022, first reading.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Bennett, anything you want to mention relative to Bill 2689?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, and with the assistance of Ms. Ripito, just 2 points. 2 of these 5 properties are the Bliss sites, which are on the national priorities list of the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. The other 3 form the Strecker Forest subdivision, which has been the subject of many discussions by the city council over the past almost 20 years. Therefore, all of these are identified for the purposes of tonight's introduction of the bill here on the north side of Strecker Road. If there are any questions or comments, the department would be glad to try to address them at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Joe? Any comments? All right, seeing none, it'll be on the council's agenda for its next meeting. Moving next to Bill 2690. This concerns Ward 6, also for first reading. Is there a motion for the first reading of the bill? Made by Councilmember Rambo. Seconded by Councilmember Jaxi. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Ms. Eldridge, please read Bill 2690.
Bill 2690, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, amending existing planned residential development overlay district ordinance number 727 and its corresponding conditional use permit, CUP, by deleting in its entirety Section 1, permitted uses, Section 4M, parking requirements, and Sections 4V and X, miscellaneous conditions, and thereafter replacing them with a new Section 1, permitted uses, Section 4M, parking requirements, and Sections 4V and X, miscellaneous conditions, which would permit the installation of dog runs, establish the processes and standards for architectural review of certain structures, and allow for additional pet-related activities on this 7.9 acre site, with said action being consistent with the letter of recommendation completed and submitted by the Planning and Zoning Commission that is dated March 7th, 2022, first reading.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Bennett, do you have anything you'd like to mention relative to Bill 2690?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, very briefly, and again, thanks to Ms. Ripito for the assistance. This particular recommendation report is from the Planning and Zoning Commission and addresses what is best described as a success story here at Fox Creek Veterinary Clinic. Over the years, the clinic has grown in popularity and the number of clients as well. The operator owner, Dr. Stuart Robson, would like to expand the clinic facility and that is identified in this particular slide. Along with that, Dr. Robson would like the option to have dog runs associated with the facility, which would be abutting and next to the stable building. And then finally, the department, and finally add potential training courses of the clientele that use the veterinary clinic. All of these are results, I believe, of a successful business wanting to expand in the city of Wildwood. Additionally, there have been some questions raised about architectural review, and so refinements have been made to the current planned residential development overlay district and accompanied CUP to ensure that those architectural review requirements are more clear and less toward interpretation. The department would sadly admit that there was a snafu on its part relative to the publication for public hearing. So tonight we are introducing the bill for City Council's consideration. In 2 weeks' time, there will be a public hearing before the second reading and potential final passage. My apologies as the director of the department. I wish I didn't have to tell you that, but I just did. And I am available for any comments or questions relating to the Planning and Zoning Commission's report. Thank you.
So I was going to suggest that we might want to consider a second reading tonight to finalize and expedite this, but I guess with what you just told me, that's not a possibility.
My
That's all right.
apologies, Mr. Mayor. I wish I didn't
problem.
have to admit it.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Vintage relative to Bill 2690 or any comments? Councilmember Clark.
Thank you. And thank you for earlier communication, Mr. Bunich, on these questions. But I just want to have them on the record that in section 1 on page 2 of the document, it's permitting of dog runs as limited number. I would suggest that we say how many that limited number is, because how do we know? We can limit it to whatever if we don't have a specific. The second thing is section 3, part 1D. On page 3, it reads that buildings must be harmonious. But I would suggest that we add a word of buildings and structures must be harmonious with the area, meaning the lighting, the fences and everything. And the third thing I wanted to bring up was under section 3, part 4M, that we have it designated as residential only code for parking requirements for 15.340 in your document. And that is just for living quarters, and doesn't mention the 415.290, which is a specific requirement for vet clinics.
Mr. Vintage, do you have any response to those 4 items?
Mr. Mayor, members of City Council, certainly Ms. Clark has done a thorough review of the planned residential development overlay district. And certainly none of those would in my opinion, have a material effect on the property or the operation. And certainly what I would consider are just refinements to what is being presented to you tonight as this bill.
Thank you. So you would need to make that as a motion to amend the bill. You want to make that as a motion?
I would make that motion.
Okay, is there a second to the motion? Seconded by Councilmember Gross.
Point of order. Do we do that on first?
Please state your
readings or
point of
second?
order.
Do we do that on first readings or second? readings?
Oh, you're right. We need to do it on second reading. Thank you. Yeah, my apology. Thank you so much. Yeah. So keep that, your 4 points. We'll need to do that at the second reading. All right. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, moving next to Bill 2691. So Bill 2691, as you can see, is a boundary adjustment, and as is 2694, essentially. The first bill is in Ward 6, the second is in Ward 8. Is there any objection to handling these 2 in tandem? All right, seeing none, Ms. Eldridge, or I'm sorry, we need a motion. Is there a motion for the first reading of bills 2691 and 2694? Made by Councilmember Jaxie, seconded by Councilmember Garetano. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Ms. Eldridge, please read Bill 2691 and 2694.
Bill 2691, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, authorizing a boundary adjustment plat between two properties under the same ownership to address a previous encroachment onto St. Louis County, Missouri Park property, all of which are part of U.S. Survey 2032, Section 15, and also being a portion of Township 44 North, Range 3 East, St. Louis County, Missouri, and more specifically situated at the terminus of Stones Throw Drive, to be hereafter known as Lot Consolidation Plat of Lot 4, Stones Throw Equestrian Estates, Plat Book 346, page 395, first reading. Bill 2694, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, reauthorizing the adjustment of 4 legal lots of record into 2 parcels of ground, such being adjusted lots A, B, and C of the Boundary Adjustment Survey, Plat Book 274, page 63, and a tract of land being in Section 12, Township 44 North, Range 3 East, and more specifically situated on the east side of Woods Avenue, south of Manchester Road, and to be hereafter known as Rogers Drive Boundary Adjustment Plat, first reading.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Do you want to mention anything relative to either bill?
Well, with the assistance of Ms. Ripito, at least I will show you what the particular boundary adjustment that is the subject of Bill 2691 appears like. And based upon the slide, the area identified by north of that blue dash line is the adjustment into the larger parcel of ground. That was an area that was encroached by the previous owners of the property on the St. Louis County property. They basically did a swap, and as you can see in the southwest corner of the plat, St. Louis County obtained additional land area for that swap. If there are any questions on this particular item, the department would be glad to answer them. The other is a reapproval of a subdivision approved back in January by City Council. The process wasn't able to conclude within the 60 required days, and the department would respectfully request in this particular instance a second reading, please.
As to which bill, Mr. Vinich?
2694, sir.
Okay, but not as to 2691?
Well, certainly it's ready to go as well. This particular owner has gone through a number of steps to get to this point, but again, the other is a reapproval of one that had already been before City Council.
Exactly. Okay, so is there a motion for the second reading of either bill or both bills? We have a motion by Councilor Ottenberg for a second reading of both bills, seconded by Councilor Garitano. This will take a 2/3 supermajority vote, since we'll be doing the second reading in the same evening as the first. We'll try a voice vote. All in favor of the motion for second reading, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Ms. Eldridge, please read bills 2691 and 2694 a second time.
Bill 2691, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, authorizing a boundary adjustment plat between 2 properties under the same ownership to address a previous encroachment onto St. Louis County, Missouri Park property, all of which are part of U.S. Survey 2032, Section 15, and also being a portion of Township 44 North, Range 3 East, St. Louis County, Missouri, and more specifically situated at the terminus of Stones Throw Drive, to be hereafter known as Lot Consolidation Plat of Lot 4, Stones Throw Equestrian Estates, Plat Book 346, page 395, second reading. Bill 2694, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, reauthorizing the adjustment of 4 legal lots of record into 2 parcels of ground, such being adjusted lots A, B, and C of the Boundary Adjustment Survey, Plat Book 274, page 63, and a tract of land being in Section 12, Township 44 North, Range 3 East, and more specifically situated on the east side of Woods Avenue, south of Manchester Road, and to be hereafter known as Rogers Drive Boundary Adjustment Plat, second reading.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Vinich relative to either bill? Seeing none, Ms. Eldridge, please call the roll for final passage of bills 2691 and 2694.
Councilmember Bros.
Yes.
Councilmember Garitano.
Yes.
Councilmember Flasher.
Yes.
Councilmember Rambo.
Yes.
Councilmember McCutcheon.
Yes.
Councilmember Farmer.
Yes.
Councilmember Nyan.
Yes.
Councilmember Bartoni.
Yes.
Councilmember Clark.
Yes.
Councilmember Galani.
Yes.
Councilmember Hopper.
Yes.
Councilmember Jaxi.
Yes.
Councilmember Bartolino.
Yes.
Councilmember Dodwell.
Yes.
Councilmember Ottenberg.
Yes.
Councilmember Edens.
Yes.
Okay, both bills pass. That takes us to Bill 2680, 2692 is before the council for first reading, and it concerns Ward 6. Is there a motion for the first reading of the bill? Made by Councilmember Jaxi, seconded by Councilmember Rambo. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Ms. Eldridge, please read Bill 2692.
Bill 2692, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to enter into a city contractor agreement with Ideal Landscaping Group for the development of Phase 2 of the Bluffview Park project as indicated in the bid documents and specifications, which includes the base proposal and add alternates number 1 and number 3, in keeping with the documentation submitted by such in response to the city's advertisement in this regard, first reading.
Thank you. Mr. Vinich, anything further you want to mention relative to Bill 2692?
No, sir, but the department is available for any comments or questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Joe or any comments on the bill? Seeing none, it'll be for the council at its next meeting. Moving next to Bill 2693, it's before the council and also concerns Ward 6. Is there a motion for the first reading of the bill? Made by Councilmember Rambo, seconded by Councilmember Jaxi. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Ms. Eldridge, please read Bill 2693 for the first time.
Bill 2693, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to enter into a purchase agreement with a certain landowner controlling a total of a single property located at 713 Grand Avenue, St. Louis County, locator number 26V621158, for the total amount of $25,000, which will add additional land area to Glencoe City's Park, being along its northernmost boundary, first reading.
Thank you. And this came out of action from the council, but Mr. Vinich, do you have anything you want to mention relative to the bill?
No, sir, but I believe the city administrator and I would respectfully request a second reading. The property owner would like to close before the end of the month.
Okay. Are there any questions for Joe or any comments on the bill before we entertain that motion? Councilor Bartoni, you want to make a motion for a second reading this evening?
Yes, I'll make the
Okay.
motion.
So we have the motion for second reading. Is there a second? Made by Councilmember Jaxi. This will take a 2/3 vote for the reason I mentioned earlier. Supermajority, we'll try it by voice vote. All in favor of the motion for second reading this evening, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, supermajority's been achieved. Ms. Eldridge, please read Bill 2693 a second time.
Bill 2693, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to enter into a purchase agreement with a certain landowner controlling a total of a single property located at 713 Grand Avenue, St. Louis County, locator number 26V621158, for the total amount of $25,000, which will add additional land area to Glencoe City's Park, being along its northernmost boundary, second reading.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions on the bill? Seeing none, Ms. Eldridge, please call the roll for final passage of Bill 2693.
Councilmember Garitano,
Yes.
Councilmember Flasher,
Yes.
Councilmember Rambo,
Yes.
Councilmember McCutcheon,
Yes.
Councilmember Farmer,
Yes.
Councilmember Nian,
Yes.
Councilmember Bartoni,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Galani,
Yes.
Councilmember Hopper,
Yes.
Councilmember Jaxi,
Yes.
Councilmember Bertolino,
Yes.
Councilmember Dodwell,
Yes.
Councilmember Ottenberg,
Yes.
Councilmember Edens,
Yes.
Councilmember Bros.
Yes.
Okay, the bill passes. Moving next to Bill 2695, it's before the council also for first reading. It concerns Wards 7 and 8. Is there a motion for the first reading of the bill? Made by Councilmember Galani, seconded by Councilmember Flasher. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Ms. Eldridge, please read Bill 2695 for the first time.
Bill 2695, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to negotiate and execute an agreement by and between the city of Wildwood, Missouri and Metro West Fire Protection District for the installation, operation, and maintenance of a priority control signal system at city-owned and maintained traffic signals, first reading.
Thank you. Mr. Brown, anything further you want to mention for the benefit of the council relative to the background on this bill?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, I have nothing additional. But again, I'm real for any questions from the city council.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for Rick? All right, seeing none, it'll be on the agenda for the next council meeting. And finally, the last first reading is Bill 2696. It concerns Ward 7. Is there a motion for the first reading of the bill? Made by Councilmember Hopper, second by Councilmember Flasher. All in favor of the motion for first reading, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Ms. Eldridge, please read Bill 2696.
Bill 2696, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to execute all documents and other items that are necessary to establish a multiple-use trail easement to the benefit of the city of Wildwood, Missouri within an existing common ground area of the enclaves at Cherry Hill subdivision, of which the three trustees have agreed and signed said instruments to this effect and thereby approving such first reading.
Thank you. Mr. Benich, anything further you want to mention relative to this bill?
No, sir, Mr. Mayor. I am available for any comments or questions from the city council or you, Mr. Mayor. And I do want to thank the trustees for their cooperation.
Okay, thank you so much. Councilmember McCutcheon.
Yeah, is this located in Ward 8 or Ward 7?
Actually, it is in Ward 7. I had it in Ward 8 and I was corrected.
No. Oh, I
Oh,
get it. Thank you.
No, you are correct. It's Ward 8. I apologize.
Because there's Ward 7 on the.
So our
Agenda.
agenda says Ward 7,
Yeah, it's Ward 8.
but the consensus seems to be that it's Ward 8.
It is. Thank you.
You'll have to thank the councilors from Ward 7 for making your motion, Councilmember Galani and Councilmember Garatano. That's true camaraderie. All right. So that'll be on the agenda as well for the next council meeting. And finally, a resolution. We have under resolutions, we have one resolution 2022-8 concerns all wards. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution? Made by Councilmember Farmer, seconded by Councilmember McCutcheon. Ms. Eldridge, please read resolution 2022-8.
Resolution 2022-8, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Wildwood, Missouri, authorizing the purchase of one portable changeable message sign from American Signal Company through the State of Missouri Cooperative Procurement Program.
Thank you. Mr. Brown, anything further you want to mention relative to this resolution?
Mr. Mayor, no, I don't have anything additional to add. Again, I'm available for any questions from the city council.
Okay, any questions? Councilmember Bartoni.
And unless I missed this in the reading, the public safety sales tax, that's Proposition P money, correct?
I believe that's correct, council member. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anything further? Seeing nothing further, all in favor of the motion to adopt resolution 2022-8, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Resolution passes. We have nothing under the consent agenda, anything under miscellaneous. Councilmember Edens.
I will be brief. I have to say, with the pace of this evening, there was some lost opportunity for an auctioneering career. I am very impressed. It was
I'm sorry.
I was making a positive joke that you had a lost opportunity as an auctioneer. No, but what I wanted to say, I have a couple comments. When we get awards like the McReynolds Awards and we're designated as, as, for example, a green city, we need to find a way to advertise that better on our website, perhaps seals or emblems at the bottom. In the same way that you see driving past Crestview, that it's a blue ribbon school and they got that many years ago, but it's still on the building. And so we want traffic, to our website to know how much work we're doing as a city and not bury it. So if we could find a way to advertise that award, that would be excellent. And just in the spirit of the other public safety comments made by Mr. Custer and Mr. Vanek, I do want to state, because I know myself and Councilmember Bartoni have gotten some emails recently. We have some residents concerned that we're not concerned about safe crossing on Strucker Road. I was disappointed to see that tomorrow's Admin and Public Works meeting did not have the flashing crossing that we had discussed more than 2 meetings ago and made a motion to have back on the agenda. So I know there is support for this. We can't get everything we want in that area, but there are small things that we can do. But I'm at a loss when we make a motion, we approve it, and it doesn't come back on the agenda in a previous time or in a reasonable time. So I just want our residents to know that we still care and we're still trying to advocate, but perhaps it needs to just totally move out of that body and come directly to council. Thank you.
So that is a St. Louis County issue, is it not? So, Oh, okay. I'm sorry. You're talking on this. Okay, we thought you were talking real estate. Sorry. Okay. Anything else, Councilor Edens?
No, that's it.
All right.
That's all I got.
Councilmember McCutcheon.
Yeah, I'm guessing this is for Steve, but I've had comments not just from Ward 5, but other residents about the utility pole replacements, how they're leaving debris behind. And it's not just portions of the pole, the wood portion of the pole, but I guess other equipment pieces to it and other tools and whatnot that they've been using. And then the way they're leaving the areas that they're operating in. If somebody could kind of look into that and see if,
You're talking about Ameren in particular.
yeah, see if
Okay.
we can't get them to do a better job here, especially about cleaning up the
We will
debris.
see what we can do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Dodwell.
I just wanted to thank Mr. Brown and his team, along with our city administrator, Steve Cross, for getting the updated Strecker Road median components, plants, bushes, et cetera, installed before it got too hot. So they've had plenty of rain over the last couple of weeks, and hopefully they will take root quite quickly and easily. But thank you very much, gentlemen.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Galani.
Yeah, I'm just asking this question because I said I would. Regarding the Durga Temple over on 109 being constructed, I've had numerous, my kids go to school right there and I have a lot of friends that live in the neighboring subdivisions. But I've had numerous people asking me or complaining about the fact that it's kind of an eyesore and it doesn't seem like it's going anywhere. I looked on their website online and it looks like they're about 5 or 6 months behind schedule according to the calendar of completion they have online. So I was just asking to see if there was any particular reason that's causing the delay or.
Mr. Vinich, are you aware of anything relative to that question from Councilmember Galani?
I am not, Mr. Mayor, but I will contact Randy Green, the general contractor, and provide you all an answer via email as soon as I can.
Hope everybody's watching.
All right.
Any
other?
And Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I will also have the code enforcement officers go by and see if there's anything that can be tidied up as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else under miscellaneous? All right. Thanks to all of you for another good meeting and for helping me through the agenda this evening. And have a great rest of the week. Thanks for all you do for Wildwood. We need a motion to adjourn made by Councilmember Farmer, second by Councilmember McCutcheon, non-debatable. All in favor of the motion to adjourn, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions?